Blog Talk Radio.
Call in our live number at 319-527-6208. That's 319-527-6208. Press 1 to participate on the air.
I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I...
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Prepper, and this is the Dr. Prepper CPR Talk Show on Preparedness Radio Network, and this is preparednessradio.com. It's the place where you can get more information about becoming prepared or even getting better prepared in case that is where you are in your life. We are about preparedness, we're about education, and today we're going to be talking again with the Angry American, Chris, and Chris Weathers is here with us today. In the past, we've been talking again. This will be the...
Thank you for tuning in to Freedomizer Radio, where we have a 24/7 chat room where you can come and share what's going on in the world with people of like mind. Anything and everything against the New World Order. Dial 347-324-3704 to catch our live show. Beginning at 9 in the morning Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday till midnight, and 9 to 9 on Saturday and Sunday. Take us to the beach. Take us to the park. Take us on a walk with the dog. Only on Freedomizer Radio.
Right here. Y'all are going to have to forgive me because this is my first time on the air. So just bear with me. All right. Today we're going to actually be talking a little bit about my family story. My channel is pretty much all about vaccine injury and all the different things that go with vaccine injury, and talking about the different illnesses, different vaccines, the science behind vaccines. And hopefully we'll get some doctors on here with some good statistics and facts and things like that in the future. And today, actually, we're going to have Kami Olmstead come on in a little while and talk with us about her two boys. Just wanting to tell everybody hello and thanks for listening. And I promise to get better at this in the future, but you know how it is when you've never done something before, so just try and bear with me. If you'd like to call in, you can call 319-527-6208 and press 1 to get on the air with me and conversate and, just talk about all this stuff. I ended up getting into this movement because my children are vaccine injured. I have two little girls. One is 3 and one is 15 months old. And, excuse me, my 3-year-old had been fully vaccinated to the regular schedule up until she was about 4 months old. And then I ended up kind of noticing that she was ending up with really, really high fevers and lots of different screaming fits. And, you could just tell that it was not something that was sitting with her very well. And I really didn't understand at that point what was going on. But I had decided that after the 4-month shots to start trying to delay some of her shots and just give them to her in, maybe 2 to 3 at a time instead of the way they do it, like 6 to 8 at a time. And once we started doing that kind of schedule, it ended up where she wasn't having as much of the crying and as much of the fever and as much of the issues. So I was trying to stick to that. She ended up being overdosed by a pharmacy, and I won't say which one, but by 5 times the medication she was supposed to have. And so we ended up having a doctor that wouldn't stand up for her, even though they weren't the ones who made the mistake. They decided that they weren't going to stand up for her, and they wouldn't say what could happen or what could be the result of this in the future, if anything. And so we ended up not being able to have a case against this pharmacy because the doctor wouldn't stand up for her. So I ended up deciding that I didn't want a doctor like that for my child. So I ended up going to a different pediatrician. And once I got to this other pediatrician's office, they told me that they didn't honor a delayed schedule for vaccines. And at that point, I still really wasn't sure about vaccines. I had never heard anything about vaccine injury. I really didn't even know it existed. I was just also one of those people that, you know, we believe what we're told. We want to believe that, you know, that vaccines are safe. We want to believe that, you know, they're not going to harm our kids because this is what the people tell us. These are the lies that we're fed, and this is what we are blindly following because it is what we are raised to believe. And so, you know, I ended up going ahead and, you know, switching to this place, and my daughter ended up actually getting thrush. And so at 15 months old, I ended up taking her in for thrush, and she ended up with a severe fever. Well, let me back up. She ended up, they were bullying me. They told me that they didn't do delayed vaccines and that she was behind. And I said, well, I looked up thrush, and it would seem like, you know, with your immune system already being down, that vaccines would not be a good idea. And we were actually going to be traveling to Houston that coming weekend, and I also let them know that we would be traveling out of state and that I didn't think that traveling right after vaccines was good either. So they ended up telling me that this was something that would have to happen that day, and that if I wasn't to get her vaccines that day, that we would end up being pretty much held accountable in neglect if anything was to happen to her that could have been prevented by vaccines. So I reluctantly ended up letting them give her 6 vaccinations that day. And let's see here. Oh, sorry, y'all. Running out of breath. And you know what? I'm obviously, you know, we all want to believe that they're doing the right thing. You know, we all, you know, walk in there with the hopes that they have our safety in mind and that they have our child's safety in mind, especially because we're the ones that they have helped hold our children down while they do this. And that was the hardest part for me to swallow because I felt like I had helped do this to my child. But anyway, when they gave her the 6 vaccines, they ended up giving her the MMR, the DTaP, varicella, the Hep A, the Haemophilus influenza type B, and pneumococcal conjugate. And 2 of those are triples. So to me, that's more like getting 10 vaccines. And she was in complete agony. I mean, from the moment they started injecting her, she was just so upset. She cried and cried and cried and threw up so much from crying until she finally just passed out of exhaustion. I checked her temperature, and she was at about 103.2 within 3 hours of her vaccines. So I gave her some children's Motrin, and I kept an eye on her while she napped, and it seemed like forever while she was sleeping. But when she woke up, she was just as miserable. She was crying. She was very pale. You could tell her legs were definitely hurting her. She didn't want to walk. And when she woke up, actually, she was sitting at 105.4 fever. And it hadn't been long enough to administer any more Motrin or Tylenol, so I ended up getting in the shower with her, trying to cool her down. And this was the start of 26 days straight of fever. And I mean that, 26 days straight of fever. There was no break. There was no, oh, this day she didn't have one. 26 days straight. We ended up reaching 106.7. We were seen in every local ER. We were in and out of her pediatrician's office, and every time we went in, they would say, fever of unknown origin. And I told them she had had vaccinations, and every single one of them kept trying to assure me that this was definitely not what happened to her. So I believed them, you know, just like a lot of us do. They tell us it's a coincidence, and we don't know any better, so we listen, and we believe it's a coincidence. So after keep going and going and going, and everybody sending us home telling us it's either a virus or the fever of unknown origin, I decided that I wasn't going to just take that as the answer because my child was physically getting sicker and sicker by the day right in front of me. So I finally got her doctor to call the Center for Infectious Disease in Birmingham, and they ended up telling me they would see her, but they made her appointment for 3 weeks away. And 3 weeks was a long time to wait when your child is this sick. So I called them and left them ample messages until they called and agreed to see her a week later. And whenever we went in, they took 13 vials of blood from her, and they ran a just multitude of tests. And when they were done, they actually sent us home, and I couldn't believe that they were sending me home with this child that I had begged to bring in and just wanted someone to help me figure out what had happened. So, they ended up calling me before I even made it back to my house. I was about to pull into the driveway, and they called and they said, look, we need you guys to pack a bag for the weekend. You need to head straight back up here. Tons of her tests have come back abnormal. They didn't tell me which ones, which freaked me out even more. And so we packed bags. We took my older children up to Granny's house, and we jetted to the hospital with Lily. And after all that blood was taken, she was already so lethargic and just out of it that, I was definitely worried and glad to be going somewhere I thought, we could get some help. After we got to the hospital, we ended up staying there for several weeks, not just a weekend. We were there for quite a while. And one of the things that I had noticed, because I went and got her medical records before I took her in, I noticed myself by looking at them that her neutrophil level was always low, like sitting at 0 most of the time, sometimes around 40. And so that was one of the things I wasn't sure about and ended up researching myself. And I saw that a normal, healthy child would sit somewhere around 2,000 to 2,500, definitely not 0 or 40. So this is one of the things I actually pointed out to the Center for Infectious Disease doctor because I wanted to make sure he had the info and actually gave him all my medical records that I had gotten so that he could make a copy of them, and it may help him get to, a diagnosis or, some way to figure this out a lot faster. So when they came in and everything, and they saw her. They did a bunch of CBCs twice around the clock, and every time they would check her number, she was still sitting at 0. And after a couple of days of this, they came in, and they told me that they were actually going to be bringing oncology and hematology on board. And for any parent, when you hear the word oncology, you immediately feel panicked. I don't care who you are, that word will make you panic. And so once those two doctors came in to speak with me and my husband, they had told us that they wanted to do a bone marrow aspiration and biopsy on her. So we agreed to let them do that, trying to get to the bottom of what happened. And they did her bone marrow biopsy and aspiration, and they came back up. Actually, I think I ran into the hematologist at the elevator. And at the elevator, this woman actually told me and my husband thought it could be the vaccines because they are responsible for many autoimmune disorders. But by the time she had made it back up into our room with the other doctors around her, she had changed her tune completely and told us that there was no way it could be vaccines and that I was off base for even questioning it. And so once again, I thought, okay, well, I guess we're wrong, and they're right. Of course, they're doctors. Who am I? I'm just a mom. And so I ended up, we were there for, like I said, we were there for several weeks. My husband missed tons of work and then ended up finally just having to go back and do what he had to do while I stayed in the hospital with Lily. They ended up doing, when they would do her CBCs, they would poke her fingers sometimes 5-6 times, or her arms, her hands, anywhere they could try to get something. And finally they went to the finger pokes where they squeezed the crap out of your finger in order to fill a vial with blood. And this was very excruciating for her. And to have to do it twice a day and get poked that many times, to me, was just insane. So finally they decided they would put a PICC line in. And when they put the PICC line in, they actually went too far into her heart. And when they did the x-ray, they had to come in and back it back out of her heart. They also didn't have anybody who was there to put her under, so they made her go through this while she was fully alert and awake. After the PICC line was in, it was a little bit easier for them to get medications in her, but and draw her blood. But even then, we had the nurses and stuff who came in who were training or something and had no clue what they were doing. So they would end up actually not usually when you do it through a PICC line, you have to pull a little bit out first into one needle and stick the other one into the PICC line to pull fresh blood out so that it's not contaminated from sitting in the little PICC line. And they did not do this. So within 2 hours, they came right back in, woke her right back up, and had to do it again. And for my child, she already wasn't getting much sleep due to the pain and stuff that she was in. So every time they came in to wake her up, I felt like we were getting further from recovery because you need rest to recuperate. After they did this for several days and came in and did her CBCs, and everybody came in and just seemed like they had no clue what was going on, they ended up trying to send me home, and I wasn't going at first. I was just still pissed off. There was no diagnosis. There was no course of action for me to follow once I got home. So this was really scary to me. The only thing I knew that was with her neutrophils being low, which is your main white blood cell. This makes up 70% of your white blood cells. So you definitely need your neutrophil levels to be where they need to be in order to have a healthy immune system. So I was definitely scared. They told me if she even got a fever of 101, she was to be admitted, she was to be given broad-spectrum antibiotics immediately, and to be evaluated for at least 24 hours to make sure that it wasn't some type of bacteria or fungal infection or virus or whatever it could be, because those things for a neutropenic child are a lot more dangerous. We were not to take her in public. If we had to, for some reason, she had to wear a face mask, and everything in my house had to be completely sterile. I was mopping and cleaning everything with bleach and alcohol, like all the time. I went and bought every kind of sterilization product you could imagine. Definitely had my house 100% in order during this time frame. It was just crazy. So they called us and told us that they would see us in 3 weeks, and that hopefully by then they would have her other test that they had sent off to, I believe it's Wisconsin. And the 3 weeks waiting to find out what was going on or if they were even going to find out an answer was about the most excruciating thing I think I've ever been through in my entire life. To sit there for 3 weeks on end while your child is still sick and still miserable and you have no way to help them other than fever medication. And they actually told me to alternate Motrin and Tylenol every 2 hours to keep her fevers in check, because if you gave it to her, even within an hour to an hour and a half sometimes, she was already spiking back up with a fever. So we went home, and that was all we pretty much knew to do, was keep her masked or keep her home, keep everything sterile, and, So by the time that appointment had come, I was pretty scared and nervous to see what they had come up with. I had done some more research on my own, and I was kind of thinking I was putting the puzzle pieces together. When we went in that day, they told me that my daughter had something called autoimmune neutropenia. And they told me that her body, when it creates her neutrophils, it turns on them and it attacks them as if they were a foreign invader. So this is why she would be sitting at 0, because every time her body would build these up, it would immediately turn around and attack them. So she ended up She ended up about a month later. We were seeing hematologists at this point, and they ended up telling us that we needed to start her on something called Neupogen, which is an injection med. There is no other medication for neutropenia at this point. That is the only thing that they have, and it's actually something they give to chemotherapy patients to help boost their immune system right before chemotherapy. And so when she first got this dose of this, she pretty much went insane. She was crawling up my body. You could just tell she was miserable. And once I read the side effects, I could understand why. Because when you take Neupogen, your bones expand and contract between your doses. And it causes you severe pain. It causes you joint pain. It causes you jaw pain. It causes you headaches. It causes you hair loss. And the longer that you're on this medication, from what I understand, you actually can end up with leukemia. That's the most scary part, I think, out of all of this for me, is that if she doesn't take the injections, she could end up with something that would usually be simple for a normal child, but could actually end up wiping her out. And so, we had to really, it was a very hard decision to put her on the meds. But if we didn't put her on the medication, then we were going to end up with a child who could possibly die from an infection, or, with the meds, we could possibly end up with a child with leukemia. So it was really one of those things you don't really know how to weigh that out. But I knew that my child needed to have some kind of immune system, especially in this world where there's so many toxins and so many things out there, so many things. Oh, Lord have mercy. So, let's see. I will tell you that injecting your own child with something, especially after having to, hold them down. When you hold your child down for a vaccine in the first place, it is heart-wrenching. It is so hard to do. And I guess I know why now. That's your motherly instincts telling you to walk away, telling you not to do this. And I wish I had known that that's what that voice was inside of me, making me so uncomfortable. Because now, to this day, I have to give my daughter 3 injections a week of Neupogen to have any sort of immune system. who was 100% healthy beforehand, other than getting thrush, which, that to me is just, they tried to tell me that this is something that she had beforehand, even though any other CBC she had, it was always normal. There was never any neutropenia. So, let's see. And during this time, I was actually pregnant with my daughter, Jasmine. I had lost tons of weight because we couldn't afford to keep eating $20 meals at the hospital, and I couldn't get a food plan for some reason. So, it was very rough. And when they had sent us home and, we were dealing with all this and dealing with the shots and everything on our own, I ended up actually cutting my finger, and they ended up talking me into the fact that I had to have the Tdap vaccine when I was in the emergency room for 3 little stitch cut. So I ended up getting the Tdap vaccine myself while I was pregnant with Jasmine. And after I got that, I actually did feel sick for about 2 weeks. My husband said it was weird because I was throwing up every day and everything all the time anyway. I was very sick during my pregnancies with both of these girls. But after I had that, I definitely felt a difference. I still don't know exactly what effect that Tdap had on me or Jasmine. But I will say that when she was born, she came out 100% healthy. And after she was born, she ended up, honestly, for me, I was the one who had a problem. I ended up with something called placenta increta, which is where your placenta grows to your uterine wall. And my doctors did not see this on my scans and did not know that this was happening. So when I birthed her and they went to pull my placenta, sorry, I know this is graphic, but they actually ripped my uterus wide open. And I began to hemorrhage out, and I began to hemorrhage very fast. And all I remember is I went from holding my baby to my husband snatching her, me starting to throw up, and then I don't remember anything after that until actually I came to on the operating room table because someone had put a shot in the muscle of my shoulder, which I'm guessing was a blood clotter because they'd given me tons of blood clotting injections before we actually left my hospital room. And once we got in the OR, they put me under, and they gave me a full hysterectomy. And when I came to, which thank God I came to, they told me that I was definitely knocking on heaven's door. When I came to, I ended up having 4 IVs going, and these 3 of which were giving me blood and 1 of which was giving me fluids. And I just remember my throat was killing me from being intubated, and I felt so just out of it and just felt so bad. And every doctor or nurse that saw me, which I guess tons of them must have been in the room when I was going through the surgery, because I'd say at least 30 different people would see me after I started regaining my strength, walking the hallways trying to get to moving around and stuff, told me, I can't believe to see you alive. I can't believe to see you with color in you. I'm just thank God that you made it. And it was really touch and go there for a while. And I have heart problems. I've had 2 heart attacks and a mini stroke. So, I honestly do believe it's a miracle I made it, and sometimes I think maybe I made it because I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing right now. So anyway, after all of that kind of stuff happened, sorry, my brain kind of skips around. I'm a little nervous. As I said, this is my first time on the air, so I'm a little bit nervous. But as that all started happening, my baby was doing fine. She was great. The only thing that I noticed, I wouldn't let them give her the Hep B because I just wanted to wait. I figured, what's the difference in waiting until she's 2 months old? But once she hit 2 months old, I didn't know this, but they actually gave her 2 Hep B vaccines that day. They gave her the Tdap, DTaP, they gave her the Prevnar 13, pneumococcal conjugate, and the polio vaccine, and the rotavirus vaccine. And so right after she had these vaccines, I started noticing that her poop was turning black and was like hard as a rock, like pebbles. And if it wasn't hard, it was diarrhea, and it was full of blood and mucus too. So I started taking her stools in and having them check them, and they also confirmed that it was, and sent us in to Children's, and they confirmed that Jasmine had intersusception due to the rotavirus vaccine. And so we were informed that Jasmine was not to have that vaccine anymore because it was a possibility she could get intersusception again, and that it would be worse the second time around. So when I took Jasmine in for her 4-month visit, we made sure to tell them as soon as I walked in the door that she was not to get this vaccine, and that I would rather hold off on the other ones too and just let me do some research. And I had to bring Lily with me that day because at this point Lily was getting biweekly CBCs. So as I'm holding Lily and I'm facing the other way, 2 nurses had actually offered to hold Jasmine for me, and they did come in with vaccines in hand on a tray, and I told them I don't want this to happen today, and they said, okay, no problem, and acted like I had time to do my research. So my back is to them because this is the way the chairs were set up in this room, and I'm holding Lily, and the nurse sticks a needle in Lily's hand to start doing her CBC, and all of a sudden I hear Jasmine start screaming and then choking. So I turn around, and one nurse is giving Jasmine vaccines in her thighs, and the other nurse is squirting the rotavirus vaccine in her mouth. And I immediately start flipping out, and they're still doing Lily's blood work. So they finish up, put her Band-Aid on, and I just immediately get up and snatch Jasmine out of the nurse's arms, and I call my husband, and I say, you need to get up here now. They just gave Jasmine all these vaccines, even though I asked them not to. So when my husband got up there, he told them he wanted document proof that they had given my daughter all these vaccinations. And they ended up telling him that they would not make document proof of it because I had declined the vaccinations. And I couldn't believe that they could give this to her, but they wouldn't put it down on paper. And, you know, even her doctor, her actual doctor, had been informed she wasn't to receive this vaccine and was in the room when this happened, sitting there on her little computer in the corner. So my mind was actually blown that all this took place, and they had me distracted with Lily. And when we left that day, I really didn't know what to expect. By the time that night came, Jasmine was screaming these crazy high-pitched sounds. And my child that used to sleep in my arms all the time ended up never wanting to sleep and having so many issues. So anyway, I'm going to finish telling you guys my story later because I actually have my friend Kami, who's going to be coming on with us today, to tell you guys a lot about what happened with her and her family. And I got plenty more to say on mine, and I'd like to save that for another day. So we'll pause right there. All right. I think I am going to put you guys to commercial for a moment.
Journey into Freedom is a show about just that. Come join me as we discuss alternative medicine, energy work, homeschooling, homesteading, barefooting, grounding, and so much more. This is a program where I want people to be heard and to share thoughts and ideas and opinions on everyday freedoms. Learning to free yourself from all things no longer serving to your purpose is the first step to living free. So let's discuss what makes us free and how we can attain those freedoms every day by the way we choose to live. Journey into Freedom with me, your host, Red Gypsy. Hope to see you then. Namaste.
Do you want to live a happy and healthy barefoot lifestyle? Join Barefoot is Legal Saturdays, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific Time to learn your rights to live a barefoot lifestyle. There are no laws against bare feet in public, and we are here to dispel the myths and empower you to stand up for your rights. Join full-time barefooter and victims legal advocate Nick Pierce on Freedomizer Radio for the Barefoot is Legal Radio Show Saturdays, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, and check out barefootislegal.org.
Aloha, this is Katmere Stone of Freedomizer Radio. I was born and raised in the Caribbean tropical coast and enjoyed living along the Blue Ridge Mountains of Appalachia, both places where Mother Nature rules and shoes are optional. Now living in the 9th largest metropolitan area in the United States, I'm surprised that more people don't realize that their health would improve if they just took off their shoes and relaxed. Yes, even in the middle of downtown. Bunions, hammer toes, atrophied pinkies, fungus issues, weak structure. All these foot problems caused by shoes are simply due to the fact that people don't know that being barefoot is not just the natural, comfortable solution, it's legal. That's right, Freedomizers. We at barefootislegal.org host a weekly radio show where we discuss the many health benefits and zero laws concerning going barefoot. Join Nicola, Kiliki Clayball, Patty Peaceful, and yours truly, Katmere Stone, every Saturday starting at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern for Barefoot is Legal Radio. hashtag Freedomizer Radio, hashtag Shoes Ruined My Feet, hashtag BarefootIsLegal.org.
Okay. Are you here with me, Kami?
Yes, I am.
Now I think they can hear us. Oh, what a crazy day. Okay. So, anyway, Kami has been in this journey for a long time. I believe more than 17 years, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, about 17 and a half years.
Okay. When did you start actually noticing that you thought maybe something was a little bit different, or maybe, that something may have changed with your boys?
Well, first, my older son, he's 21 now. Now, he had a seizure at his 1-year vaccines also, but he didn't lose any skills. I just noticed that he started to really develop obsessions. Winnie the Pooh, nonstop, all day, having to hold something that was silky all the time, stuffed animal tags, blankets. It had to be something silky that he was holding. But I was young. He was my first son, and he still spoke. He still did everything that you would normally watch, expect a baby to do as they develop. So I didn't think it was vaccine related. So when my younger son came along a few years later, he was vaccinated at 26 days old with a Hep B vaccine. And the next day, he started projectile vomiting that evening, and the next day I called the doctor, and the doctor said, babies throw up. That's what they do. Well, that still freaked me out. It wasn't good enough. So I went to the doctor, and I said, he's not okay. Something's going on. So at that point, the doctor said, well, I think your older son looks like he's not doing well. And I just thought he had a cold. Well, he ended up admitting my older son into the hospital and then admitting Jonah into the hospital the same day. And as I look back through the medical records, the consensus from the doctors was, in black and white on the medical records, it says, and I quote, this baby, Jonah Olmstead, is not really all that sick, but we're admitting him into the hospital anyway because of his mother's inability to cope. And I never knew until, a couple of years ago that was their perception. So I always wondered, why did you put him in an oxygen tent and bring in a respiratory therapist every 2 hours to bang on his chest to loosen up whatever was in his chest? So just treated really like I was this uninformed, clueless mom. I was recently divorced, so it was just not, I don't know, I always felt like I was a target because I was a divorced parent or a single mom. But that was the first indicator, but I still didn't know at that point that was a reaction to a vaccine after the Hep B. So I continued to vaccinate Jonah, and after every set of vaccines, he was back in the doctor's office. He always developed respiratory problems. But again, I didn't attribute it to vaccines because babies get sick. That's what they do. That's what the doctor said. At 1 year, Jonah had his vaccinations and had a seizure. And in the ER that night, I asked the doctor, I said he had just had his vaccines. And he said that has nothing to do with this. They did a spinal tap, an enema, a catheter, drew his blood, did every horrible, horrific thing you could think of to this poor little 1-year-old baby. And I'm telling you, Lynette, every scream from him was a different kind of horror. When they did the spinal tap, a different kind of scream. When they did a catheter, a different kind of scream. It's ingrained in my mind. But after that, Jonah pretty much started to go downhill he stopped looking at us. He stopped trying to make words. He used to say kitty, ball, light, mom. One of his first words was a cuss word that I probably shouldn't say on here. But he just...
Hey, this is Freedomizer Radio. I think that means we have some freedom.
Well, one of his first words was "damn it," but he just lost everything that he had. He started to spin, literally spin in circles until his whole body would tense up, and he would tip over like somebody had just like when you chop down a tree in the woods and that tree just falls over solid. That's how he would tip over. So we would have to have 2 or 3 people around him, my mom, my sister, me, around him all the time to catch him because he wouldn't stop spinning. He would shred paper and shake it out, in the corner of his eye and watch it out of the corner of his eye. He stopped sleeping. He stopped eating. He started screaming all the time, just nonstop. And I would go to the doctor and say, I think something's wrong. Well, just a baby. He'll catch up. Boys develop later than girls, and all of that BS that they tell people. At 2.5, when I took him into the University of Iowa to the developmental pediatricians and the evaluations, the psychologist or psychiatrist that was talking with me, she said, "How can you not know that this is not normal development? You have an older son." And I said, "My older son was talking in complete sentences before he was a year old. That's not normal development either." So I had
that's above average.
Yeah, he literally at 10 months old, he could talk to you in sentences. We used to just be amazed. Justin could read and write at 3, and nobody taught him. He wasn't going to preschool at 3. He knew how to, I'd say, "Do you know what the color yellow is?" And he'd say yes, and he'd give me something that was yellow and then write the word yellow. I said, "How did you learn how to write?" "I just know." Just like, so I didn't really have a basis for normal development, but I did know that Jonah was doing things that a 1-year-old should do, and then he wasn't doing things. Everything that he was doing, he stopped doing. So I got in contact with a mom in my area, and when Jonah was about 3, and she kind of set me on the right path because he wasn't sleeping, and I would just drive around for hours and hours at night because he wouldn't sleep. And I think I was on the verge of losing it because he would sleep 2 hours a day, but it was 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes late, in the afternoon, 45 minutes in the evening, and then half an hour at night. And so I never got to sleep. And I would just sob because doctors wouldn't help me. Everybody said, "He's too little for any kind of sleeping medicine." And you just get blown off everywhere you go for help. So it's pretty disgusting. But, yeah, so one child off the charts ahead of schedule, and then Jonah, having all the skills that he should have had at 1, and then losing them all. So I've been, in doctors' faces many, many times over the years and kicked out of many doctors' offices. When I first learned about the thimerosal and the vaccines back in the late 90s and early 2000s and began to do the research that my friend here locally was telling me about, I remember going back into the doctor's office that had vaccinated Jonah, and I said, "I figured it out. This is what's happened to him." And he politely escorted me out of the doctor's office and said, "We are not going to talk about this." And I said, "Well, I'm never going to go away." And I kind of haven't. So that's how we started out. But it's just been, almost 20 years of being laughed at and ridiculed nonstop everywhere we went. So, so in 2005, I just couldn't take it anymore because we knew what was happening, and we knew that nobody was listening. So some friends of mine here in my area, and I decided that we need to do something. So I said, I'll just travel the country. I'll get a vehicle, we'll deck it out with info, and then I'll just go. I'll take my kids and I'll go. And that's exactly what we did. We had a car dealership here, donate a minivan to the mission, and another company did graphics on it for us. And we just traveled and went to as many cities as we can. I think 30 cities, 10,000 miles in 30 days in 2005. So my boys were 6 and 9. I can't remember exactly. I have to calculate months, but I just took them, and we stopped, and we would try to get in to talk to the media. And back then, I think I was still a bit naive. I just thought, well, they won't ignore us. They absolutely did ignore us. We went to the CNN building in Atlanta, and they said they were going to send somebody out to talk to me. We sat out there for 3 hours almost in front of the big CNN sign waiting for somebody to come and talk to us, and nobody did. Eventually, we had to leave. Same everywhere we went. So I went when we got over toward the western part of the country. This was back when a mother was protesting the government for one of the wars in the Middle East, and her son had been the first to die. And I don't know if it was Afghanistan. I can't remember which conflict it was, but they were protesting her son's death and the Bush administration and whatnot. So I knew there was a lot of media there. So I found my way to George Bush's Texas ranch, and I parked our van. I parked our van in the middle of all these big mainstream media satellite trucks, the CNN trucks, the NBC trucks, every giant truck with a giant satellite on it. I was just in the middle of them all. So we were just knocking on the doors of all these big trucks and saying, this is what we're doing. Will you talk to me? And all of them said, oh, we'd love to talk to you, but we're not allowed to talk about anything but this. So I sat there for hours hoping that somebody would just happen by and say, sure, I'll give you 5 minutes. But nobody did. And that was pretty much how it went everywhere we went. But we did get a few stories in some newspapers, like in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There was a story in a paper in Virginia, but not what we needed. But we were on the road. We had lots of info and graphics on that van, so passersby, over 30,000 miles did see. So I don't know if we were effective in waking anyone up, but maybe somebody did question what was happening. So and then we did the same thing in 2006 and handed out what we call boxes of hope to families that we met across the country. Like we had supplements. We David Kirby's book, Evidence of Harm. He donated 100 copies of that to put in these boxes. So we had all kinds of really good things for families. So that was a really a lot of fun. We had an event in Little Rock, Arkansas. We had an event in Lower Manhattan, Lexington, Kentucky. So, we tried. But
yeah, you kind of did what I
did. Still fighting.
You took the negative and tried to make it into a positive.
I think that's what we all have to do. Because if you spend day after day, year after year, getting laughed at and ignored, at what point you have to take the bull by the horn sometimes and do something. Like the Vax team, Polly and everybody and Andy, they've been fighting this battle for a couple years longer than I have, and so have other parents. And at some point, you've just got to say, you know what? To hell with it. We're going and we're going to do this because somebody has to pay attention. And being out there, it's hard to ignore you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard sometimes. I think when we first start out, the fear gets a hold of us, and we think, oh, my God, if I say something, they're going to come for my kids, or, you know, what are they going to do to me? Or, I mean, that was my first thoughts. You know, when I finally realized what had happened to our children, that was my fear was, if I speak out about this, they're going to come for my kids, or they're, you know what I mean? Like, that was my fear was, you know, how involved in this am I going to get? And then once I started really seeing all these other videos and these other things, you know, with all these other children, it became very apparent to me that this is something I have to do. It's not a choice anymore. It's something that I literally can't sleep if I'm not going to do this. And, you know, and honestly, you know, for us, I mean, you know, I do the detox and everything. That was really kind of another way that I ended up becoming, I guess, more a part of this movement, was because so many other parents, you know, would come to me, and I just kind of got to know so many people, and I felt like, okay, it is time to stand up and speak for these kids. And I know that you've been doing that for a lot longer than I have. But, you know, my kids are a lot younger, and we're kind of just at the beginning of this vaccine injury journey, and I'm scared to death. But, you know, you give me hope, and so many other people I've met and I've been talking to, it really does make a difference. I mean, you know, it gives you the confidence to keep going, and it lets you know you're not alone anymore in this, and it lets you know, you're not crazy. You know, I get so tired of people saying you're pseudoscience bull crap. It's like, you know, if you actually go read the real studies and go look at the real science, you're the one with the pseudoscience, you know?
Exactly. You know, I think the difference between me and maybe some other people, not that it's a bad thing, but I don't know if I was ever really scared. I think that I don't think I was ever afraid that my kids were going to get taken from me. Maybe I was a little bit naive, but I never shut up about it. And when I look back at some of the things that I did and some of the things that I tried, I think, my goodness, you know, I took my kids by myself, one boy with Aspergers, one boy with autism that was nonverbal, across the country by myself twice. Where, you know, anybody could think, my gosh, she's out of her flipping mind. But I was never scared to talk about it. I just got more and more angry that people weren't listening. And for a little while there, I just said, you know what, I can't even talk about this anymore, because it's the same thing. It's been the same thing year after year. Something good comes out, and then it gets shut down. You know, when we got involved in the Omnibus in 2003, the Omnibus Autism Proceedings and Vaccine Court, I thought, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be where it finally comes out. My son's going to get compensated. He's going to be able to get the help that he needs, because I'll finally be able to pay for all of the doctors and all of the treatments and all of the things that I can't pay for. So I was naive in that too. I think I was always naively optimistic, but as the years went by, I became a little bit more pessimistic about it. And then when the study came out from the CDC, that the one that the Thompson comes clean about in Vax, I thought, oh my gosh, this is finally it. You know, a decade later. But you know, it's very frustrating. But I think that's what that community want. That's what they want to happen. They want us to give up, because we get, you know, the wind knocked out of our sails so many times that if they keep doing it, we're eventually going to go away. Well, it's been 20 years, and in some cases even longer than that. We're not going away. So just admit it so we can move on, so our kids can get the help they need, and we can keep this from happening to anybody else. Bottom line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, the crazy part is, I mean, they're vaccinating pregnant women with all kinds of stuff. And the rates of fetal demise have grown insanely. I mean, I still can't fathom the fact that they are vaccinating. I mean, they gave me Tdap when I was pregnant. I still can't believe they vaccinate pregnant women. Like, I wish I had known better. I wish I wasn't so blind to everything back then, you know. It's just the scariest thing to think that they have that much control, and so many people just have no clue what's really going on.
Right.
You know, I know for me and my family, we definitely were blind to all of that. I mean, that's just how you're raised, you know. And I was raised in a group home where, I mean, you just get used to following whatever someone tells you to do, and you think that they would only tell you something that is for your own good. So, you know, right. I mean, we all go through that, and until we wake up, we're all blind to this. And once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. You know what I mean? There is no going back to sleep once you know the truth.
That's right. Now, I have to deal. My mom has been with me through everything since my kids were little. I left my husband when I was pregnant with Jonas, so I was a single mom or a divorced mom from the very beginning, even before the beginning. And she's watched everything. She's watched the illnesses, the regression, all the things we tried, all the places that we went. She was right there with me through everything. And she still asks me today, if they know these things are happening, why don't they stop it? I just don't understand that. And I think that it's a really hard pill to swallow for people to actually accept the fact that the doctor, the medical community, the CDC, the FDA, the government doesn't have their best interest at heart. I think that is too shocking for people to actually
there's no money
that.
in health. There's no money from healthy people.
Exactly.
You know, that's like I was telling you the other day, working in that tattoo shop. It blew my mind that we cleaned up 1,000,000 times better between customers getting tattoos than they clean up in a pediatrician's office or a hospital between patients. You know, because if you get sick in the tattoo shop, someone's getting sued. But if you get sick in the hospital, they're just going to make more money. It's just ridiculous.
Exactly.
Oh.
We even have the issue that the sanitation even in, and I hope I don't offend anybody that might work in a school system somewhere, but I pulled my son out of school for this year because first we had our state mandated the meningitis vaccine for 7th and 12th graders, and granted, we still have the religious exemption, but there's the lingo in there that says I know by not vaccinating that I'm putting my child and potentially other children at risk. So that's a big issue for me. But you can also apply for a medical exemption. That doesn't keep you safe because what happens if you have a vaccine-injured child, you know it, your medical provider doesn't believe it, they're not going to give you a medical exemption. So that's nice to have on the books, but it's pretty much ineffective if 99% of medical exemptions don't get approved. But,
no, and a lot of those doctors also get bullied if they do write those, or if they don't look at Dr. Sear, that they don't fill them out just right to whatever. They can end up being sued. They can end up in a lot of trouble. So I think that a lot of people have ended up where doctors don't want to write these exemptions. You know, my daughter, she has a autoimmune neutropenia, and if she was to get a live virus vaccine, it could cause severe damage or even kill her. And I still can't get a medical exemption. So, you know, it's pretty crazy how hard they make it to do that.
Right. You just have to walk away from the whole system. Jonah got really sick in 8th grade with a cold virus that had mutated. And I had gone to the doctor, to the ER twice, and said, he's not getting better. Oh, you know, he can't be that sick because he's really feisty. Do you want to give him the flu shot and the pneumonia shot? I said, no, he's already sick. Oh. So they sent me home with ibuprofen and Motrin, or ibuprofen and Tylenol, like they do at after the vaccines. And he had a seizure that night or the next day, and I had to call 911 they had to airlift him to the University of Iowa Children's Hospital, where he was on life support for 11 days. They didn't think he was going to make it. 11 days. And I had taken him to the ER or the doctor twice and got blown off because he was feisty. So
Jesus Christ.
I don't know where he got that, but then the next year he also got what they thought was mono. I had taken him to the doctor twice and to urgent care once and the ER, and I said, what is going on? And they said, well, he has all the symptoms of mono, and there's nothing you can do for mono. It just has to run its course. Well, finally, after 2 weeks of my son sleeping 20 hours plus a day, I went to the ER and said, something is wrong. Can somebody please help me? And the doctor said, well, we're going to have to run some blood tests. He was in liver failure. And they drove us by ambulance back to the University of Iowa Children's Hospital, and they couldn't figure out what he had until about 3 days. They said he has cytomegalovirus. It has all the same symptoms of mono. And I said, how did he get it? And they said, well, most people have the CMV virus dormant in their body. Most people do, apparently. And something triggered it in him. It was probably something he was exposed to out in the public or whatever. So the only places that my son's exposed to anything are in the stores and at school. And being in a level 3 classroom where we had teachers and paras and all of that, and all the kids were, like Jonah, nonverbal, severely autistic, and everybody puts everything in their mouth. So unless you are diligently sanitizing and washing everything that these kids are touching, it could, things spread around in those classrooms. So I said, I can't do this anymore. I almost lost him in 2013, and then in 2014 with the next thing that caused liver failure, I was just done with the whole public school system. So now I don't even like to take him to the doctor. Thankfully, he's healthy. He's just not. If he's sick, I'll take him. But I totally agree with everybody. If you're not sick, don't go to the doctor, because that visit, you might just come home sick.
Yeah, it's magical how much healthier you are when you avoid the doctor's office. I think it's magical.
Exactly.
It blows my mind.
I want to propose something to you and to everybody that might be listening. We've talked about, nobody listens to us, and what's the point of having? Why do we go from 3 shots to 7 shots to 12 to 70? And this is an idea. Now, about a month ago, I made a video and put it on Facebook of my mom, and I asked her 3 questions. Did you have the chickenpox virus? And she said yes. Did you have the measles virus? And she said yes. And she's fine today. I think we need to put it out there. We need to interview our grandparents and our parents and the older population that wasn't bombarded like our kids are today, because if we can dispel that fear in these young parents thinking they have to have 70 shots or their kids are going to die, they need to look at their grandparents who might be 70 and never had a shot at all.
We went from having parties and getting the whole neighborhood together so everybody got it over with at once to people being so afraid that they feel like they've just got to have that vaccine, and it's, or their child's going to die from the measles. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Just look at the facts. I mean, all these people who are the generations above us, every one of those is, they're alive, and they had the measles, and they had the chicken pox. I had the chicken pox, and I had it bad. I ended up with infantile. I had chicken pox so bad. I'm still alive.
Exactly.
It's just crazy. We're going to have to go to a commercial real quick, and then we'll come right back with Kami.
Okay.
Hi, guys. It's me, your host, Red Gypsy. reminding you to come journey into freedom with me every Monday night at 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. This is going to be a show that's going to cover everything from metaphysics to holistics to herbs to gardening to barefooting to grounding and so much more.
Aloha, this is Kami Doxsee of Freedomizer Radio. I was born and raised in the Caribbean tropical coast and enjoyed living along the Blue Ridge Mountains of Appalachia, both places where Mother Nature rules and shoes are optional. Now living in the 9th largest metropolitan area in the United States, I'm surprised that more people don't realize that their health.
Vaccines are required for students, employees, immigrants, military members, and international travel. Do you know how to legally avoid them? This is vaccine rights attorney and Freedomizer Radio host Alan Phillips. My vaccine exemption ebook can help you avoid the mistakes that have cost others their exemption rights. Get the authoritative guide to vaccine legal exemptions, an ebook available at freedomizerradio.com.
You're an activist. You have a cause and an idea, but you also have lots of questions. You need help. After all, teams have coaches, corporations have consultants, and even politicians have campaign managers. But who do activists turn to? The Solutions Institute. We are a collection of professionals and activists from across the political spectrum. Our goal is to teach, motivate, and put all the necessary tools for activism in your hands without charge. Learn.
Tipped off by the criminal underground that my house was being watched, and that eventually...
You are listening to Freedomizer Radio, where Freedomizers freedomize freedom. You are listening to Freedomizer Radio, where Freedomizers freedomize freedom.
I am an autonomous government agent here to steal your livelihood.
Oh, crap.
Not so fast. I'm Sovereign Filing Solutions.
And I'm the Sovereign. We're teamed up
to bring you
the truth without censorship.
Are you tired of being fed multi-million-dollar media lies?
Are you ready for the real story?
Sovereign Filing Solutions has teamed up with the Sovereign newspaper to make sure you get it.
And not the BS this guy behind me wants to feed you.
Take the step, help make the change.
Oh, come on, that's not even fair. How are we supposed to rule indiscriminately if you know what's going on?
All right, you there, Kami?
I am.
All right. Okay, I like your idea. I think it'd be great to interview our elders, and like I said, hell, I even had the chicken pox really, really bad. So it doesn't, it's not even just the older generations, And I was in the children's home at that time, and funny enough, it didn't spread like wildfire, And I would think with 40 kids around me, it would. And I had them in my mouth, my eyelids, like in my ears. It was really, really bad. And I don't have any scars to show for it. I mean, I came out on the other end about a week later just fine. So the fact that we're giving these kids, the varicella vaccine for chickenpox makes absolutely no sense. And a lot of times when you mix the varicella one with the MMR, you get a really bad reaction. And those are actually 2 of the 6 my daughter had put together. And when I researched that, it actually says that's a very big no-no to combine those 2. And they've actually just come out with the MMRV that is those combined. So, just blows my mind.
It's insane. I heard
there's 3 more. I'm sorry, go ahead.
My son had so many vaccines. In fact, he had the DTP and the DTP Hib on the same day. So back then it was the DTP, not the DTAP. I'll read you this list. March 8th, 1999, DTP Hib, IPV, Hep B on March 8th, 1999. On June 2nd, 1999, DTP, Hib, IPV. he had 28. He had 19 vaccines with 28 viruses in them within 15 months. So it blows my mind that I didn't know any better. I think it's just criminal that this is happening. And this was back in 99 and 2000 that he was vaccinated, and that was when we had some really dangerous stuff before the mercury was, I don't want to say eliminated, I would just say where they took it down to trace amounts. But even trace amounts, aluminum is not a good thing. So,
well, especially because those trace amounts in just one are still over the limit. And then when you're pumping 6 to 8 vaccines in a kid at a time, you're well over those amounts. You're definitely well over those amounts. From one of the studies I remember hearing that just one vaccine had 200 times more mercury in it than a grown man's body should be able to handle without an adverse reaction, and that's just one. So when you go and you pump 6 into a kid, how in the world could they expect that something bad's not going to come of that? It just doesn't. This scientifically doesn't make sense. And the fact that doctors don't question it, don't read the inserts, don't read the ingredients, don't do any of those things, it just doesn't make sense. It's like Dale Bigtree said. When he said this, I thought he was just brilliant for addressing pediatricians with this. He said a mechanic knows every part of a car, every thread count, the viscosity of the oil. They know everything about that vehicle, and they can do anything with it. A baker knows every ingredient to a cake. The science of bread, all of that, but the doctors just don't know the science of vaccines. They don't know what's in them. They don't know what they do. And, out of the 7,000 hours they're in medical school, 2 are spent on vaccines, and most of that, is all for vaccines. I doubt they get much about the adverse reactions, if they get any at all. It just doesn't make sense. They're brainwashed. It's like that meeting that just happened in New York University with Offit and Pan. I really was just so happy the vaccine was there, because I think the intimidation factor kind of put them on their toes. And, so thankful that Dr. Susan Humphreys was allowed to go in and take notes for us so that we could actually be in the loop about what they were telling these doctors. And to tell those doctors that you don't give a parent the option anymore. You don't say, these are the vaccines we recommend. You have to say, these are the vaccines your kids are going to get today. It's just insane.
It's absolutely insane. And it makes you feel a little bit helpless, because when you hear what they're telling them, and you can't just go up to them and say, please listen, without these young medical students saying, tinfoil hat wearing crazy people. They
actually told them that the crazies from the Vax team are camped out across the street. They addressed them by calling us crazies, and they told them that the Vax movie was nothing but lies. It was nothing to look into. Don't waste your time. They pretty much talk nothing but crap about all of us, trying to steer them away from it. Well, what's funny to me is when you tell somebody not to do something, 90% of the time they're going to do it because they want to see why they're not supposed to do it. So I really hope the way that they spent that time talking about Vax to those students makes them curious enough to go and watch it. I really hope that has that effect. I just know how I am, and I'm rebellious as hell. And if you tell me don't do this, I'm going to do it. I want to know why I'm not supposed to do it.
Yeah, you can't do that. Yes, then that means I have to if you're telling me I can't.
That's right. That's how I stayed in trouble growing up.
Yeah. Well, and also these medical students are so eager and impressionable, and when they're when they're sitting there in the audience of somebody that the establishment has put a halo on, like that stupid Paul Offit, and then Senator Pan, they're mesmerized by what they think are these amazing miracle workers. So, and they want to please them. They want, because that's the field they're going into. They want to be like Pan. They want to be like Offit. They want to do exactly what these guys do. So not only is it dangerous that they're being lied to, but it's even more dangerous that they're being lied to by people like him and Pan that have been given this cloak of perfection, and it's so many ways wrong.
You know what else blows my mind, Kami? If someone that is on the pro-vax side was to approach us and ask us if we minded debating this or talking on the subject with them, I highly doubt that any of us would say, F you, get the F out of here, or run from us and take off and try to hide in the sheriff's part of the building, just like Pan and Offit did. If you don't have anything to hide and you have the truth and you have science on your side, then you would be down there and you would be telling your side of the story because you know that you have truth on your side. But when you have to lie and you have to hide and you have to get violently rude with your words and, you're on the wrong side. I mean, I would have loved if Offit would have taken Josh's, invitation and gotten on the back for us to talk vaccines. But he knew if he did, he was going to get proven wrong, and there was no way he was going to take that chance. And I just wish he had been dumb enough to go do that, because he is a very brilliant man, or he wouldn't be getting rich off vaccines right now. I still think there's got to be some way that this is illegal, because this is what do they call it? Not a conflict of interest, but how can you be allowed to rep and speak to medical students about something that you are putting millions of dollars in your pocket for every year? How are you allowed to stand up and say, you need to do this, or we're going to make it where it's medical neglect and try to take your children? How can you say that when it's lining your pockets every year? I don't think you should even be allowed to speak on this topic. He's getting paid so much money to do this, and it just doesn't make sense. And I don't care how much money you pay me. There's no way you can convince me to harm children for money. That takes a special kind of retarded.
Well, it takes a special kind of evil, because but also there's no ramifications for any of those people. So until there is, it's going to continue to happen. There needs to. I spend many hours in a week trying to figure out a way that there's got to be some kind of red tape that can be filtered through that our government in some law has overlooked. Our way into the legal system. I've looked through federal tort acts. I've looked through, just in everything you can imagine. I've thought, maybe we can try to hold them accountable this way or this way or this way. And even there's got to be some way. Now, we all know the laws on the books for everything are vast, and there's so many loopholes with everything. There has to be a loophole somewhere that, so maybe we can't sue the pharmaceutical industry, but can we sue the American Medical Association? Can we sue somebody? I want to sue somebody. And
Amen
people
to that.
say, you just want money. And I said, it's not about that. It's about
justice.
Exactly. It's about justice. And yes, I would love to win money for my son so I can help him, because he's going to need help for the rest of his life. And I'm not going to be here for the rest of his life. And when I'm 85 and he's 60, almost 60, how are we going to do this? And we can't even trust a lot of the centers that the adults are living in, or the group homes that they're living in. They get abused and neglect. Exactly. So there has to be some legal measure that we can take. I just haven't figured it out yet what that is.
I think that's most parents. Yeah, I think that's most parents of autistic kids on the spectrum. I think that's most parents' fear is what's going to happen when I'm not here anymore? Who's going to take care of them? And are they going to take care of them correctly? Are they going to take care of them to my standard? Because this is my baby, I've had 2 heart attacks and a mini stroke. I worry about this every day. I'm only 36 years old. I don't know how old I'm going to make it. Thank God I'm still alive and kicking. Like I said, I feel like I'm here for a reason. But, there's no guarantee that tomorrow's even coming. Anything can happen. And I just want to know that my kids are going to be taken care of. And that is the scariest thought, Most people who are single, you struggle with it all the time. It is very hard to go through this by yourself. I'm lucky enough that I have my husband, at least for now. You never know what's going to happen down the road. Things get crazy in life, but, I know that, it's definitely got to be a hard struggle. And if they can put Martha Stewart in jail, we should definitely be able to put Pan and Offset in jail. I mean, come on. It's just there's got to be loopholes. There's got to be ways to do something about this. I mean, I just never will be able to fathom how someone who's getting paid millions of dollars is able to sit there and rep their own thing that they're getting paid for. It just doesn't make any sense, especially when it's killing people. And I mean, it's thousands. I mean, I can't. And then SIDS. SIDS is something that pisses me off so bad. I mean, all these parents are hurting so bad, thinking that their child just mysteriously died and they don't know why. Some of these people are even in jail as if they did something wrong. And SIDS, to me, is not a real thing. SIDS does not exist. It is brain damage from vaccines, and it is a cover-up by calling it sudden infant death syndrome. Back in the day, did infants just die for no reason, just die in their sleep? I mean, it's just crazy.
If infants died, eons of time ago, it was from disease. And we are pumping them full of all kinds of stuff. So, when sanitation improved and clean water and more healthy food, a lot of those things came to a big halt. And then when they started introducing vaccines and things, all of a sudden these numbers started rising again. And it just, I don't get how people can't put two and two together. Because they're brainwashed. I like to compare it to the FLDS, Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints. Not to insult that group, but when you look at that community, you have one man and 25 wives, and that is the only life they've ever known. So they don't know any different. People that are vaccinating, that's all they've ever known, all they've ever been taught, so they don't know any different. And it's a shock to their system when they have to step out of that. So,
it's a shift in paradox.
Exactly. We're kind of like trying to get the FLDS wives out of the compound and wake them up, but they've been told their whole life that the outside world is evil. It's the devil's playground. It's an evil place. Well, we're trying to wake up these young parents that have been convinced that anti-vaxxers are horrible and they're killing people by not vaccinating, and you're going to hold on to what you know with all you've got because you're scared to even think for a minute that you might be wrong.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. It's a definite battle, but it's a long one. So we need
but you know what? The more people like you and me who get up and we speak loud and we make sure our voice is heard, the more people who out there become brave and start doing this, the more people we wake up. Even if each of us only reach 10, 20, 30 people, think about how many people that is on the big scale. I know I've reached a lot of people, and it always blows my mind because I don't even know most of them that I've reached until I say something. All of a sudden they're like, well, you're the reason why I'm even looking into this. And it just always makes me feel like, okay, good. I'm glad to know somebody's listening. I'm glad to know I'm not just blowing hot air around, It helps you keep going.
Right. I think we need a Sheila Ely in every city in every state because she is brilliant, and she is a voice that everybody needs to hear everywhere. And we kind of all need to, be like Sheila, not unafraid and informed, and not unafraid is so important, and just get out there and tell people the truth. And if they laugh at you, fine. But you've planted a seed of doubt, and somebody's going to question it. And like we all say, if we just get one person, that's one less vaccine injured person potentially that we've reached. So, but we need to reach them all and somehow, again, dispel the fear that if I don't give my child 6 shots at 2 months, 9 months, a year that they're going to die, because they're not going to die. Shouldn't be.
That's right. They're going to be super healthy.
Exactly. My sister babysits. She's been a babysitter her entire life, and she loves the little babies. She was just elated when a friend of hers had a baby, and she's been asked to watch this little 2-month, 4-month-old baby. And I said, please don't go babysit that baby if she's vaccinating her. She said, oh, she's not vaccinating her. Well, we found out that she did take her to get her 2-month vaccines. And I said, Corey, do not go babysit that baby, because 2 months and 4 months is about the time that babies are dying from SIDS. And it's not just this random thing that happens. It's because of those shots. And you're the one that's going to be in care of that baby, and you're going to be held accountable for why that baby died if she dies because of a vaccine injury.
70%. 70% of SIDS deaths happen within 2 weeks of vaccination. 70%. There's no way that's a coincidence. That's why I talk about coincidence disorder, because it's impossible. The statistics don't lie.
Yeah, statistics don't lie, but the establishment does. And
yes, ma'am.
Hi, Jonah.
Hey, Jonah.
Yeah. Hi. You say hi. Hi.
Aww.
Yeah, we're okay. We have to do our crunches. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Welcome to my world, everybody.
That's right. Creature of habit. That's my Jazzy, too. She was just out there, as I call it, her Forrest Gump. I just heard her out there with my oldest daughter going, you know, I definitely understand.
We have to do 30 crunches after every bath, and we have 10 baths a day.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Well, I bet he smells good. I know he's precious. He's adorable.
Thank you. Cleanest, almost 18-year-old you'll ever meet.
Hey, you can't complain about cleanliness, though.
Right. But, you know,
and he likes his, didn't you say he loves his Wendy's fries every day?
Well, it can be any kind, and that always gets me thrown under the bus with a lot of people, because he likes French fries. And I have to do what I have to do to keep the peace. I can't afford all of the things that a lot of other people get to try. And, you know.
Well, hey, our buddy Greg goes to McDonald's with his, so don't feel bad. Even you know, and you know what I'm saying, though? We all do what we have to do to keep our children happy. And you know, that is the way it has to be. I mean, the meltdowns and things like that, those are something that if you can avoid, you definitely try to avoid. And,
well, and when you're talking about somebody that's a 2-year-old having a meltdown versus somebody that's 6 feet tall, and you know, it's I always feel like I'm making excuses for why I do some of the things that I do, but I think my son is almost 18. He's nonverbal. I'm alone, and I don't have this backbone of support from, you know, a big family and a spouse that can help me do anything. So
that's right.
Sometimes I have to keep my sanity, because everybody will say, just don't do that. Just don't give him that. Well, he'll stop screaming eventually. No, he doesn't. I'm talking about hours and hours and hours of screaming, and I have to keep my sanity. So, you know.
Yeah, I like to put them on a schedule. You need to make them go to sleep. Let them cry it out. Put them on a schedule. You know what? I can't get my kids to sleep on a schedule, especially Jasmine. She doesn't barely ever sleep. If she does, it's like 2 to 3 hours, and she's right back up. And during that time she is sleeping, Lily's awake. So, you know, I'm like you. I rarely ever get to sleep. And, you know, you see me online. We talk at night. We're both up in the middle of the night. I know you have to go out and take your son for rides to help calm him down and help him rest. And there's not a lot of rest for parents. I mean, this is just the way it is, and that's the saddest part, because, you know, a lot of times you have to think back and think, I wonder what their life would have been like. I wonder what they would be doing right now. Would they be going off to college? Would they be doing this? And it's just heartbreaking because their choices were taken away from them. Their future was taken away from them. You know, it's just, it doesn't make any sense that people aren't listening. And I'm so glad that, you know, we finally are getting out there. And, you know, I so appreciate you coming on with me today. I love you to death. I think you are amazing.
Oh, I love you too.
You know?
Well, one of the things too that the outsiders, and I've said this before to people, that my friend in Oregon and I call the people that don't get this the simpletons, because their life is simple. And when you become an autism parent or a vaccine-injured child's parent, you have to dig so deep. You have to go to places that the normal world people never even have to go near.
They don't know exist. Yeah.
Right. So it not only has taken away the opportunities and options for our kids, but it's also done the same thing to the parents. And, you know, we've lost financial possibilities, careers, stability in so many different ways. But in all of this, the one thing that I can say unequivocally is that I have made the most dedicated, best friends that I know are going to be my friends for life. The autism moms and dads, those are the only people that you can call at 4 o'clock in the morning that are going to answer the phone when you need them. It doesn't matter if they're sleeping and you're awake. They're going to answer that phone because they get it. Nobody else gets it. And to all my moms and dads out there, I just love you all. And, you know, thank you for being on the journey with us. Because I tell you, I don't know if I could have done it without all of you guys. We're not over.
Yeah.
You know, it's not over yet, but you know,
I think a lot of us have actually kind of learned by seeing you and getting to know you and learning from the footsteps you've taken before us. And I think that the things that you have done, you know, have really, you know, made the journey a lot more possible for people like me. I learned so much just by reading, by listening, by talking to, you know, I mean, it's wonderful, like you said, to have this community. I've never felt like I've fit in anywhere really in my life until I joined this movement and I started realizing, you know, it's weird enough that this is the one place I fit in, but hey, I'll take it, you know what I mean?
Now this is exactly the family that nobody ever wants to be a part of, but the most loving, dedicated people that you'll ever meet. So, you know, that's one positive in all of this. And, you know, lots of people to fight alongside, and that's an honor. So we're going to win, Lynette. We're going to win.
Oh, I know we are. You give me goosebumps right now. I ain't even kidding, because I know we are, girl. I ain't got no doubt in that fact. I have no doubt in that. I mean, that's something I feel to my core, because there are enough people, this has happened to so many families, that there's no way a change couldn't happen. There's so many people awake right now, and there are more waking up every day. There is no way that it's not coming. And I really hope Trump does something. I really do. I'm not going to put too much faith yet, because I want to see what he does. But I really hope that, you know.
I know you have to go here. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, and I know I'm not supposed to do that.
No, you're all right. You're all right. We're down to 1 minute left, buddy.
Okay. Well, let me just say this. I met Trump in January when he was on the campaign rally, or on the campaign trail. And I talked to him, and we talked about my son and his injuries. And he stood there with me, and he said, "Do you think this is from the vaccines?" And I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "So do I." And I mean, I will never forget those 2 or 3 minutes with him, because in all of these years, I have tried to get these politicians to listen, and none of them ever listened until him. So there's hope. There's hope.
It made your heart start pumping real hard when you saw that map start lighting up red, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
When I saw it, I was scared.
Oh, well, I was too, but you know, he's going to do the right thing. I believe that. So
All right, guys. Well, we're going to have to end this episode. This is for Taken Generation. Thank you for listening in with me and Kami Olmstead today. And you can find us on Facebook. You can find us all over the place. You guys start spreading the news and getting your message out there. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see y'all next Monday.